Alright guys, welcome back to VALORANT News. Major roster developments last night, especially what NRG are cooking up for the upcoming season. Yes, they just won the World Championship, but according to rumours, s0M is not part of the plan for that roster going into next season. What reasons could be behind this? Is s0M looking to totally step away from competitive VALORANT? Could he even be getting poached by another organisation? Does he want to leave? So many questions last night. s0M at least gives some hints as to what the answers might potentially be. Very much into your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I would greatly appreciate it. Thanks for all the new subs as well over the last few days. On the road to 81,000. DRX. Bayin is to stay. They've re-signed him. I like that they very much clearly exemplified the hyphen here in re-signs, because sometimes that gets dropped and they say resigned, which doesn't usually mean the same thing. But they confirmed that they've locked him down until 2027, so he's not going anywhere. DRX very confident in their roster they had at the end of the season. Understandably so. Estrella is officially gone. Bayin is not going anywhere. Let's talk Ascension. Two big results that happened yesterday. More big results coming up today. ULF Esports and BBL Pacific, they made it as the #1 seed through their group so far. We know that Focus and Enterprise Esports are eliminated, so Job Life versus Dynasty, Twisted Minds versus Mandatory. One of those two teams will qualify for the playoff stage, where two teams, of course, are already waiting. In the Pacific, the playoff stages are very much at this point well underway. That SLT Seongnam team that have done rather well, they started off with a 2-0 win here against Now, so they're actually looking really good. So, yeah, the Korean teams are looking pretty scary right now in the Pacific and elsewhere. Well, I mean, just Pacific in general, but also, of course, in Ascension. 13-10, 13-6, they took the win. The other big series that's currently ongoing is Boom Esports versus Velocity Gaming, right? As Boom Esports try and find their way back into the Pro League. 13-4, currently it's 3-1 on the sunset. So Boom Esports will be favoured to close out that series, and there will be two spots, of course, to qualify. Nongshim are starting in the losers bracket based on what happened in the group stages, so they will have to win 1, 2, 3 series if they want to make it to qualify as well. So big games to come. I'm sure that at least one of the teams that was there last season will be back in, but not necessarily both as it stands. This was what was happening in the Americas, and this was absolutely crazy. You guys might remember I showed you that clip the other day of that guy. He was behind 4 players and managed to kill all 4. Well, Poppin finds himself in this spot. He lets 1 walk past. He lets 2 walk past. He lets 3 walk past. And then he goes for the shots. And he whiffs everything, and he's down. And this was in like a critical overtime round at 13-12, right? It was a 3 versus 4. If he got 2 kills here, especially if he got 3, I mean, he could have even waited longer, right? If he really wanted to, he could have probably waited longer. But, you know, he got a little bit trigger happy. He didn't even get 1 in the end, which is pretty horrific, really. And anyway, Stella Gaming, they took that rounds, but they did not take the series. So, because this was a crucial game in the decider, right? We had Winthrop University. They 2-0'd 9Z in the end. This was actually pretty dominant, 13-0, and then it was 13-9. But yeah, I don't really know what was going on in the Americas yesterday, because we had a 13-0 on the Abyss on their map pick, which is pretty hilarious. Winthrop 13-0'd them. And then in the Envy series against Stella, map 1 Abyss was that 1917 giga banger. And then Envy just decided to turn it on, won the sunset 13-3, and then 13-0'd them on the bind. So, like, I don't really, like, you don't see many 13-0s. So, for them to do it this way was pretty hilarious. Kane Zero has not had a great tournament so far, really, but he was pretty good on the sunset, so maybe that's going to give him some optimism to turn it around. Because there's been some questions, you know, can he do it on LAN and all this stuff? Look, the team is very young, but they made it to the playoffs. So these are the playoffs. 3 of the teams from the Americas, from North America, are there. The other team is Team Solid. That's Havoc, DG, Zan, and those guys from Brazil. So definitely going to be competitive. Of course, as we know, only 1 team can qualify because G2 aren't going anywhere yet. So who knows, right? I think this is a stacked bracket. Excited to see the way that this concludes. They've got a day off, and then on the 26th, everything is officially locked in. Just quickly on Envy, Hastro did confirm because the players who aren't 18 yet, they can't compete in the Pro League, of course, if they were to ascend. But Hastro confirms that the players that wouldn't be able to ascend, they would stay in challenges, and there's actually contracts for Ion and Kane that if they were to be in challenges again, they would have 3 new teammates. So it's their choice there if they want to sit there, because they could potentially go elsewhere as well. Now, speaking of players who are only 16 and not yet eligible to play, at least in the Pro League, what is very interesting is because next year there's no Ascension, right? Probably because they're redoing all the partnership agreements for 2027 anyway. But the point is that next year, teams from challenges, if they do well enough, will be able to qualify and compete at the Stage 2 playoffs with the pros, which potentially means they could even qualify for the biggest possible tournaments. And what is said is that there will be exemptions granted for the challengers teams if they have players that are 16, right? So this is pretty interesting, because you might argue that, well, the teams might be forced to field 18-year-old players for those tournaments, but the issue is that then that would probably incentivize them to not sign 16-year-olds in the first place, because they want to make sure they can qualify for these internationals to give themselves a chance of doing well, getting spotted, and getting picked as a partner team next year. But there will be exemptions there, which I think is actually a great decision, and I'm very much on board with that. Let's talk Rostermania. Kamek, free agent, challenging season, he says, with Gentlemate. Officially a free agent again. Yeah, Gentlemate, what a wild ride. Get promoted, get relegated, and now get selected as a partner team with all the Koi drama. So they've got to build a roster. What are they cooking? Good question. Rocket Bullet says they're targeting Globex, Polish player, for their VALORANT roster. They've also got Beepo as a duelist. They've got Globex, Martine, and Mini. That seems to be their team. Is it a good team? I don't know. Time will tell, really. But they've definitely been selected to come back into the Pro League, so they've got to try and do a better job than Koi did last year. There was a further bit of talk on what Durka was cooking up. He did these tweets implying what the roster could be. I'm not going to speculate on that again, but there were some questions. Was he the bold guy? Was he the egg? Boaster and Durka had a bit of a discussion on that. The other update in the Americas is that 2G, they're officially out of there, right? We know that they, didn't end the season the way that they would have liked to. They actually weren't horrifically bad. They actually gave it a good go. Spike Zam was a quality player for a time. But they've let all their players go now, and wishing them the best all going forward, and as an organisation as well. Speaking of Brazilian players, it's worth talking about Aspas, because there are absolutely rumours that there's a lot of interest in Aspas, and for good reason. Even from teams from China, there have been rumours that Gen.G might come along and give him just an absolutely insane bag offer. But according to the latest reporting, he is prioritising staying with MIBR. As I've said, MIBR need to try and do everything they can to keep out of Aspas, right? Look, they're not going to pay him as much money, or not going to be able to pay him as much money as maybe some other organisations could. But if he believes in the project there, if he believes that they are listening to him and him alone, basically, in terms of what decisions they make, and he's happy and secure in that situation, that, it seems, is Aspas's priority for now. But the other big developments in the Americas yesterday came out of 100 Thieves and then the World Champion. So 100 Thieves, they confirmed that Zix is gone. We believe that Sean Gares is coming in as their kind of team manager, like their head of VALORANT effectively. There are rumours that the current TSM head coach, who's right now at Ascension with the team, could be joining 100 Thieves as well after the Ascension tournament is over. But Zix is gone. I thought this tweet definitely caused a bit of a stir, because, as the social guy says, a true mastermind in the server will always be grateful for his dedication. So I find these tweets all rather funny, because it's like, if he was really that good, you wouldn't drop him, right? Like, look, I know there was a lot of optimism when Zix joined. I actually think he's like a knowledgeable guy for sure. This year wasn't great. It wasn't horrific, to be honest, really. I don't think 100 Thieves were atrocious this year. So Zix he strikes me as a solid coach, really. But again, it's like, if he was a mastermind, you wouldn't drop him exactly, right? Unless there was some sort of like clash culturally with the team, which I don't think there really was. That was one tweet. The other tweet was this from, 100 Thieves, that Kess is gone. Of course, he stepped in at the end of the season. Looked all right for a little while instead of Boostio. Started well, went downhill. We'll see. I think Kess, at least, he put his name on the map with 100 Thieves to an extent. Whether he gets a good offer next year, we will see. But yeah, 100 Thieves, another funny caption. When Thieves needed him most, he answered the call. We'll always be grateful for that. But he's officially gone. That's 100 Thieves. The other big drama, though, of course, is on NRG, because there was a rumor a few days ago that NRG were interested in getting z0M, trying to sign him off of Sentinels, given their contract is up. And we wondered why, right? Like, why would that be the case? Now, Alejandro says that s0M is not expected to be part of their lineup next year. Now, he doesn't go into any details as yet as to why. He just says, according to sources, he will not be part of their roster. He does go on to say at the end of the article, for s0M, this would open multiple pathways across partnered leagues, given his champion's pedigree and proven adaptability on utility-heavy agents. So they did throw that line in there, which kind of implies that s0M might still play. I mean, we know that s0M has said this on stream, that like, oh no, I'm not going anywhere and all this. But I don't know about that, right? Like, s0M wanted to get a trophy before he retires. He was considering calling it a day before anyway. He's now won the world championship. He's capped off his career in the most remarkable possible way. I can absolutely see a world where s0M decides this is just the perfect time to go and stream full time. Totally get it if that's what happens. Because I can't imagine that NRG are dropping it. Like, they're not going to make a change, are they? They're not going to drop s0M for some other player. Unless TENS hits them up and is like, look, I want to play for NRG and only if you drop s0M, right? Okay, then maybe you do it. But you're never going to do that otherwise. The only other option is that s0M like has some sort of offer from another team, which is just impossible to refuse. But the thing is, he's been part of NRG for years now, right? Like, he's been on this organization for like 5 years. He had a bit of a break from competing on the team. But he's not going to just leave the organization that's kind of given him everything, right? So the only most logical explanation is that s0M is looking to call it a day, to retire. It'd be very, very unlikely, I think, if there was another eventuality here. s0M did tweet this, right? Because, you know, some have said, like, is he going to defend his title? Is he not? So he was obviously seeing the news. Again, we saw rumors about this a few days ago. If s0M was going to retire, I think it would have been in his best interest to, like, drop the announcement now. I don't, maybe they're preparing something, but still, it's always a bit of a shame when this stuff kind of gets leaked and then the player announces it. When it was first rumored a few days ago, people were like, oh, well, NRG might be interested in z0M, and people were starting to speculate. If he is going to retire, he probably should have just announced it then. But because now everyone's like, oh, s0M's retiring and all this. Maybe he is, maybe he is not. I don't know. But if he is, then it might take away a little bit of the glamour of that decision. s0M also tweets this out. So time ticking. Obviously, you can speculate what that's meant to mean. There was also some debate on what's going on with FNS. We know that they were the duo. FNS has now called it a day. And, well, Yin2 says, me waiting to find out if I'm third wheeling for another year or not. s0M says, I've got bad news for you. So the implication there being that she will be for another year, I suppose. And maybe that's good news for NRG and s0M fans. But, yeah, it's difficult to read any of this stuff as it stands. And as Zelsis says, no FNS, no s0M, no Zelsis, no Marvs, 10 sassy z0M, Sabrosa, no Wardell. Don't know about that so much, right? z0M ain't going anywhere. Zelsis probably isn't going anywhere either. We'll see that in a second. But yeah, no Wardell, unfortunately, that does seem to be true. Just a couple of scrimbucks before we close out. This is Sentinels against EG. So Com, we know, is going to EG again. Here's Potter. We've got Derek, we've got Bao, and then Sen, Narrate, Zelsis, Caillou. That was that scrim on that occasion. NRG, Winter 4, I think, is Marder, so they were scrimming again. This is interesting, isn't it? Because why would they be scrimming, right? They've just won champs. The only reason would be they've got to try and find a good fifth, right? So Marder, Rourke, Scuba. Of course, Ethan presumably is there, but who knows? And they're maybe trialing other players. That's a good question. There was also another scrimbuck spotted here, Sentinel versus EG. This time we saw Redux in the scrim with Caillou. So Redux, Zelsis, Narrates, Kaplan, Caillou were the ones spotted from Sentinels on that occasion. Again, it's got to be worth noting, I've seen a lot of scrimbucks over the last few days from Sentinels. I've not seen bang in any of them. And this is another one. John QT and z0M were both available at the same time they were scrimming. Doesn't mean they're gone necessarily, but they were clearly stepping out for this one. And who knows, maybe NRG need a player. If that's the rumours, NRG need a player. So very much interested in your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care. And I'll see you next time.